Topic here is Stonewall, a brief history of events. So keep in mind, you definitely want to be able to use this sheet that you could find on the site. Here you see the names of individuals from the presentation sheets, mollycoddle, invert, and so on. And here we see the potential answers. So the answers, and this is just straight matching for that section, is there. Feel free to access the form that we have on the site, or you can locate a blank copy. I believe I also have one with the answers. So we want to make sure that we know where these items go. For example, Frank Cometti was kicked out of the military. What else do we have? Whitman, a possible gay poetic invert, used the term yearning, call Ulrich. Hirschfeld is the German guy, worked with the Nazis. Biological definition, let's see, man trapped in a woman's body is invert. Neurological disease, that's possibly the biological definition. A gay rights advocacy groups, so that's the homophile movement, looking at all of them. Let's see, what else do we have? The mafia, they probably have something to do with Stonewall, owned and profited off of gay bars. The Mattachine Society, let's see, wanted to show homosexuality was normal. Keep in mind, the Mattachine Society is one of the groups, members of the homophile movement. The Daughters of Bilitis published the latter. Boston. All right, so we kind of get some of these here. Child molestation. The military release is the discharge. Arrested for being gay. It's probably entrapment. Proved abnormality and deviancy. European term. That's going to be buggery. Targeted homosexuals and only heterosexuals. That's going to be sodomy laws, which leaves the last one up for, there you go, right there. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at with those. So this one is our transition into the Stonewall Riots. This is a quick overview of where we've been and what some of the items that we've looked at. By this point, you should know buggery laws, the debate about sexual inversion and homosexuality. World War II is around here, and that the gay community in the military was kicked out, leading to the development of areas like the Castro in San Francisco. Here you see the 1940s. These are the issues that impacted and the gay rights groups of the 40s and 50s were addressing and dealing with. So these are the items of concern for that group. Then you have the sexual revolution. So as the sexual revolution heats up, that is going to impact members of the gay community. And of course, you have the Stonewall Riots in the 60s, which is going to set us up for the 1970s. So in class, you want to be able to have an understanding of these terms. This is the question sheet that you would be responsible for answering. And then, of course, you may also be asked to complete this sheet where you have to look at the documentary Stonewall that we will be watching. And how does the film address the life of a homosexual? What does it say about the laws? And what terms do they address? We also have the reading here that addresses some of the points like the blue discharge, Executive Order 10450. Here we have a Tescadero, which will be next class. So that reading will also be assigned. So we're going back to this particular point because we are looking primarily at the Stonewall Riots, which is taking place in the late 60s. And New York City, which is different from the issues that were taking place in the 40s and 50s, which primarily were these items here. So a little bit about the Stonewall, and this comes from the book Stonewall by David Carter. This is a bar that is bring your own alcohol, because remember, there are laws that say you cannot have a liquor license and serve two men or two women or two men dancing. You cannot serve homosexuals alcohol. So this is a bring your own because they want to make sure that they do not have to apply for the license because that would put them in violation. And that tells the tale of the Stonewall. So here you see an area. The toilets will be of concern because the toilets will be the places where the police officers will take women or suspected women. They may be men dressed as women, and they have to enforce the law that says you cannot wear 3 articles of clothing made for the other gender. So if this actually is a man and he's wearing high heels, he has on lipstick, and let's just say the dress will be the 3rd item, he would be in violation of that particular law. So we have to check to determine whether or not the woman or the individual that looks like women according to society, you bring them into the toilet and you would want to check them. So yes, we are putting police in a situation where they have to check individuals. And this is one of the things that's going to lead to some of the anger. So the police go into the Stonewall Inn and they are checking, and it's a debate about who actually starts this particular protest. The argument is that the men dressing up as women, did they start this, or was it women who were lesbian women, and they kind of felt that when the police would take them into the restroom, that they would kind of overstep and maybe get inappropriate. And so it became common that if you were one of the women, it was actually a woman, according to society, that the police were probably going to touch you inappropriately. And so these women, the argument is, that they may be the ones to start to get violence. In any case, according to David Carter's book, you start throwing rocks, and then rocks turn into bricks, and before you know it, there's a riot on your hand. And so in the riot, which is taking place here on Christopher Street, you see the members of the patrons of the Stonewall Inn utilizing this format of protests and singing this particular chant here. Where they're the Stonewall girls, they wear their hair in curls. They don't wear underwear, but apparently they show their pubic hair. So the geography of this actually is one of the issues that David Carter brings up. So if we see the Stonewall Inn, we are not talking about just city blocks that are squares. You notice that this is a triangle here, and the geography is used. So if we have the protesters in this line right here, and the police are here trying to deal with them, that these protesters are able to easily kind of run around and then come behind the police. And they're able to use this geography to their advantage, which puts the police in a position where some of their training is just not going to be helpful, which, according to the book and the documentary, forces the police into the Stonewall Inn where they are afraid of the riot that is taking place. This is an image from the Mattachine Society protests. It is not connected to the Stonewall Riots. I'm using it just for the purpose of establishing the history of this particular group. So we should know from a prior class that the Mattachine Society was going into bars and identifying themselves as homosexuals, chanting, "We're here, we're queer, serve us beer." We've addressed this in a prior class. So we know, again, that you don't want to serve two homosexuals alcohol. We have the article of clothing law. You're not allowed to dance if you're two men. And you also have something called the morals police that were going in and enforcing this legislation. And so that's significant because that's precisely what the Stonewall provided, a safe haven for these individuals where they could kind of feel free and just be who they were in that particular moment. Here you see some images from the Stonewall Riots. Here we see an additional one. And then we see an article here where it talks about 3 persons being arrested on charges of harassment and disorderly conduct. Windows of the inn included support gay power and legalize gay bars, which tells us gay bars were illegal. Here they talk about a melee involving 400 youths. The youth is important because we have a bunch of young, nothing to lose types. And the reason possibly is if you come out during this time period, maybe you live in the center part of the United States, you run the risk of your family disowning you, and you probably want to either go to the Castro or to the Village in New York City. So these individuals are probably homeless. They are what society would call the degenerates of society. They're probably unemployed. And these are the individuals that are, participating in this particular riot that's taking place. Like I said, you definitely want to take a look at these questions. Let's kind of go back to this section so I can kind of analyze some of the information from the film. So here you see the life of a homosexual. So according to the documentary, they talk about constant sex in the bathroom. Go to New York City. I just addressed this. The dealing with constant suicide for society viewing you as an outcast, and just the simple fact that you needed to hide your sexuality. Laws targeting. So the documentary addressed a lot of the laws, We've already looked at the PSA, the mental disorder, Atascadero, which will be next class. So these terms should be somewhat familiar to you because we've addressed them already. And then terms specific like deviant, entrapment, and cruising, which we addressed. So these are items that are all addressed in the documentary. This is the documentary on the Stonewall Riot.